The alarms on the Stellar Alliance outpost rang through every corridor, their urgent sound breaking the usual peaceful hum of the station. Commander Reed's tail twitched nervously as he stared at the readings on the main screen. In his 15 years of service, he had never seen anything quite like this. "Sir, the object is still moving closer," reported Officer Brown, his 4 hands moving quickly across the control panel. "It's massive, at least 3 times the size of our largest battleship." Reed's scaled skin shifted colors, showing his worry. The outpost, sitting at the edge of the Rigel sector, was supposed to be safe. Their defense grid was the best in the galaxy. Or at least, that's what everyone had believed until now. "Show me the visual," Reed ordered, his clawed hand gripping the command chair. The main screen flickered to life. And there it was, a massive dark shape moving through space, its hull covered in what looked like thick armor plates. "Status report," he barked, watching as the unknown ship continued its steady approach. "Sir, it's a human vessel," said Brown, his voice filled with disbelief. The room went quiet. Humans were supposed to be a young race, barely able to reach their own moon. The Alliance had watched them for years, deciding they were too primitive to make contact with. The ship on the screen told a different story. It moved with purpose, its engines leaving a blue trail in the void. Along its side, Reed could make out markings in the human writing system. Their translation software quickly decoded it. "HMS Thunder. Send the standard warnings," Reed commanded. "All frequencies, all languages." They had protocols for first contact situations, even if nobody had expected to use them with humans. The warnings went out, bright energy pulses that no spacefaring race could miss. The human ship should stop, or at least slow down. That's what any sensible species would do. It didn't stop. "Sir, they're still coming," Brown reported. "Speed unchanged. But there's something else." He paused, checking his readings again. "Their shield technology. It's like nothing we've seen before. Our scans can't get through." Reed felt his scales turning a deeper shade of blue. Humans weren't supposed to have shield technology at all. They weren't supposed to have ships this size. They definitely weren't supposed to be here, in one of the most heavily guarded sectors of Alliance space. "Weapons status?" Reed asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "That's the strange part, sir," another officer spoke up. "We detect no energy weapons, no plasma cannons, no laser arrays. But there are holes in the hull, hundreds of them. Our computers can't identify their purpose." The HMS Thunder was close enough now that they could see it clearly. It was ugly by Alliance standards, no smooth lines or elegant curves. Instead, it looked like it was built for war, every part of it designed to take hits and keep moving. "Sir," Brown's voice jumped higher. "They're sending a transmission." "Put it through," Reed ordered, straightening in his chair. This would be humanity's first official contact with the Alliance. History books would record this moment. The screen changed, and Reed found himself facing the human. The alien creature looked calm, almost relaxed, sitting in what must be their command chair. Its pink skin and flat face were just like the observation reports had described. "Stellar Alliance Outpost," the human spoke, its words automatically translated. "This is Captain James Walker of the HMS Thunder. We come with an urgent warning. Your sector is in danger." Reed felt his scales ripple with surprise. Not a greeting. Not a request for peaceful contact. A warning. "You have breached Alliance space," Reed replied formally. "Your presence here is unauthorized. Please explain your actions." The human captain's face remained serious. "Commander, in the next few minutes, I'll tell you something that will change everything you think you know about the galaxy. But first, I need you to check your long-range quantum scanners. Focus on the direction we came from. Look for any unusual patterns in subspace." Reed glanced at Brown, who was already working on the console. The officer's hands suddenly stopped moving. All 4 of them. "Sir," Brown whispered, his voice shaking. "You need to see this." As Reed looked at the new readings, he felt his scales turn white with fear. Behind the human ship, hidden from their regular scans, but clear as day on the quantum readers, was something impossible, something terrifying. The human captain spoke again, his words heavy with meaning. "Now you see why we're here, and why your outpost is no longer as safe as you think it is." The main hall of the Alliance outpost buzzed with activity as Captain Walker's hologram stood in the center of the room. He was taller than Reed had expected, his dark uniform decorated with simple metal pins rather than the glowing rank markers the Alliance used. The human's presence, even as a hologram, seemed to fill the space. 3 months ago, our quantum computers detected something moving through subspace, Walker explained, his hands moving as he spoke. At first, we thought our readings were wrong. The numbers were too big, the patterns too regular. Reed listened while his staff worked around them, their movements quick and nervous. The quantum scan results were still displayed on the main screen, showing wave after wave of something heading toward Alliance space. "Why didn't you contact us through normal channels?" Reed asked, trying to understand. "The Alliance has outposts near Earth. We've been watching your planet for years." Walker's face showed a slight smile. "We know. We've been watching you watch us." He paused as surprised murmurs filled the room. "Did you really think those old rockets and satellites were the best we could do? We needed time to prepare, to build our defenses without drawing attention." Brown, still at his station, spoke up. "But your technology, these readings show your ship using systems we've never seen before." "Because you were looking for the wrong things," Walker replied. "You expected energy weapons, plasma drives, all the standard tools of space warfare. We went a different way." He touched something off-screen, and a new image appeared beside him, a technical diagram of the HMS Thunder. Reed studied the image with growing amazement. The holes they'd detected in the ship's hull weren't weapon ports, they were launcher tubes, hundreds of them, designed to fire solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. The ship's unusual shield wasn't energy-based at all, but a complex gravity field that could bend space itself. "Kinetic weapons?" Reed asked, his scales shifting to show his confusion. "Physical ammunition. That's," he stopped himself from saying, "primitive. Effective." Walker finished for him. "Especially against what's coming. Your energy weapons won't work on them. We learned that the hard way." The room grew quiet. "You've fought them before?" Reed asked. Walker nodded, his expression grim. 2 years ago, a scout group reached our outer colonies. We lost 3 ships before we figured out how to fight them. He touched his console again, and the image changed to show a battle recording. Reed and his crew watched in silence as sleek, silver shapes moved through space with impossible speed. Alliance-style energy weapons passed right through them, their shields adapting instantly to each new frequency. But then a human ship appeared, launching swarms of small, solid objects. The machines couldn't adapt to physical impacts. They couldn't predict the chaotic patterns of thousands of metal fragments moving at relativistic speeds. "The machines learn fast," Walker continued. "They analyze energy patterns, shield frequencies, everything about how your technology works. But they struggle with simple things, physical impacts, gravity distortions, the chaos of mechanical systems." "How many?" Reed asked, his voice quiet. "Thousands of ships in the first wave, millions of individual units, and behind them." Walker paused, looking tired for the first time. "Behind them is something bigger, something that made our best quantum computers shut down rather than process what they were seeing." Brown's console started beeping. "Sir, long-range sensors are picking up something new. It's moving fast." Walker's hologram turned to look at the readings. "They're here sooner than we expected. That's a scout group like the one that hit our colonies." He looked directly at Reed. "Commander, you have a choice to make. Your outpost's defenses won't stop them. But if you're willing to trust us, the Thunder can protect this station." Reed looked around the room at his crew, saw the fear and uncertainty in their postures. He looked at the quantum scan readings, at the massive waves of enemies approaching. Then he looked at the human captain, standing calmly in the middle of it all. "What do you need from us?" Reed asked. Walker's smile returned, confident and ready. "First, I need control of your sensor network. Then I need you to clear all traffic from the space around this station. Things are about to get very interesting." Reed's scales shifted to a deep purple, showing his determination. "Do it," he ordered. For better or worse, the Alliance outpost was now in the hands of a human warship captain, and they were about to see exactly what humanity's primitive technology could do. The HMS Thunder moved into position above the Alliance outpost, its dark hull blocking the starlight. The station's crew watched through viewing ports as the massive human ship began deploying what looked like hundreds of small metal boxes into space. "Targeting markers," Walker explained from the Thunder's bridge, his image now displayed on all command screens. Old technology, but reliable. No power emissions for the machines to detect. His crew worked quietly behind him, their movements precise and practiced. Reed stood at his own command station, watching the sensor data flow across his screens. The human ship had linked with their systems, and now he could see everything the Thunder saw. The approaching machine scouts were unlike anything in Alliance records. Their ships looked almost organic, with surfaces that shifted and changed as they moved. 5 minutes until they enter weapons range," Brown reported, all 4 hands moving across his console. "Sir, the station's weapons are powering down. All of them." Walker nodded. "Had to do that. Energy weapons will only make them stronger. But don't worry. We've got something better planned." He turned to speak to someone off-screen. "Load the tubes, all of them, and get the gravity drive warmed up." Reed's scales rippled with nervous energy. His entire career, he'd protected this outpost with the most advanced energy weapons in the Alliance. Now they were defenseless, putting their trust in a human ship's primitive technology. The first machine scout appeared on the visual sensors. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, its silver surface flowing like liquid metal. 2 more appeared behind it, moving in perfect formation. They seemed to ignore the Thunder completely, heading straight for the outpost. "They don't see us as a threat," Walker said, a small smile on his face. "Just like you didn't, at first. That's going to cost them." He pressed something on his command chair. "All hands, battle stations, initiate Operation Sandstorm." The metal boxes scattered around the station suddenly came to life, but not with energy beams or force fields. Instead, they started spinning, releasing clouds of what looked like simple metal dust into space. "What are you doing?" Reed asked, watching as the glittering clouds spread out between the station and the approaching machines. "Creating chaos," Walker replied. "These machines think in patterns. They expect energy weapons, shield frequencies, things they can analyze and counter. But this," he gestured at the growing clouds of metal particles, "this is just physics. Simple, messy, unpredictable physics." The machine scouts hit the first cloud of particles. Their shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing against the tiny pieces of metal. The particles scraped against their hulls, creating tiny scratches and dents. The machines immediately changed course, their surfaces rippling as they tried to adapt. "Now for the fun part," Walker said, initiating gravity pulse in 3, 2, 1. The Thunder's gravity drive activated, but not as a weapon. Instead, it created a complex web of gravitational fields throughout the particle cloud. The metal dust began to move in thousands of different directions at once, accelerating to incredible speeds. The machines found themselves in the middle of a metal storm, each tiny particle now moving fast enough to punch through their armor. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Walker asked as the machines tried to retreat. No patterns to analyze, no energy signatures to adapt to. Just good old-fashioned physics. He turned serious. "But this was just a test. The real fight is coming." Reed watched in amazement as the machine scouts fell back, their perfect surfaces now pitted and scarred. His sensors showed significant damage to their internal systems. Humanity's primitive solution had worked better than any Alliance weapon ever had. The celebration was cut short by new alarms. Brown's voice shook as he reported, "Sir, long-range sensors are picking up multiple signatures, much bigger than the scouts. There," he paused, checking his readings again. "They're opening some kind of subspace tunnels." Walker's expression hardened. "Right on schedule. Commander Reed, what you're about to see is why we really came here. Those scouts were just testing our defenses. Now they know they can't beat us easily. They're going to throw everything they have at this station." Reed felt his scales turn a pale blue as he saw the number of signals appearing on his screen. "How can we possibly stop all of them?" "We can't," Walker said simply. "Not here, not like this. But we can make them follow us. And that's exactly what we want them to do." He smiled again, but this time it wasn't friendly at all. "Trust me, Commander. The real trap isn't here. It's where we're going to lead them." The space around the Alliance outpost lit up with the glow of dozens of subspace tunnels opening at once. Reed watched as machine ships poured out of them, their silver hulls shining in the starlight. They were larger than the scouts, each one nearly the size of the Thunder itself. "Counting 37 capital ships," Brown reported, his voice steady despite his trembling hands. "More still coming through. They're surrounding us." Walker's image remained calm on the command screen. "Good. That's exactly what we wanted." He turned to his crew. "Begin transmission sequence. Let's make sure they can follow us." The Thunder's communications array came to life, broadcasting on all frequencies. But instead of messages, it sent out a complex pattern of signals that seemed to catch the machine's attention. Every silver ship turned to face the human vessel. "What are you doing?" Reed asked, watching as more machine ships emerged from the subspace tunnels. "Giving them something they can't resist," Walker explained. "We've spent months studying how they think. They're drawn to patterns they don't understand, things they want to analyze and break down." He smiled. "Right now, we're broadcasting copies of our quantum computer calculations. To them, it looks like we found something they need to know about." The machine fleet moved closer, their formations perfect and unnaturally symmetrical. The Thunder began to pull away from the station, still broadcasting its mysterious signals. Just as Walker had predicted, the enemy ships followed. "Commander Reed," Walker said, his voice taking on an urgent tone, "I need you to trust us for the next part. It's going to look bad. Very bad. But whatever happens, keep your station exactly where it is." Reed's scales shifted colors nervously. "What are you planning?" Instead of answering directly, Walker turned to his crew. "Initialize the gravity drive. Full power. Begin the countdown." The Thunder's engines flared to life. But something was wrong. The mighty ship began to shake, its hull creaking loud enough for the station's sensors to pick up. Arcs of energy crackled along its surface as the gravity drive pushed far beyond normal limits. "Your ship," Reed said, alarmed. "The power readings. It's tearing itself apart." "No," Walker replied calmly. "It's tearing space apart. There's a difference." He looked at something off-screen. 10 seconds. "Commander Reed, I suggest you shut off any sensors pointed in our direction. This is going to get bright." The machine fleet had almost reached the Thunder now. Their ships moved faster, eager to capture what they thought was a failing vessel with valuable data. They didn't notice that the human ship's apparent breakdown was too perfect, too precisely calculated to be real. 5 seconds, Walker announced. "It's been an honor, Commander. See you on the other side." The Thunder's gravity drive reached its peak. Space itself began to warp and twist around the ship. The machines, finally realizing something was wrong, tried to retreat. But they were too close, caught in the growing gravitational distortion. "Now," Walker ordered. A blinding flash lit up space as the Thunder's gravity drive created something that shouldn't have been possible, a temporary artificial gravity well strong enough to bend light itself. The human ship, along with the entire machine fleet, vanished into the distortion. For a moment, there was total silence on the Alliance outpost. Then Brown's console began beeping. "Sir, I'm picking up. It's another human ship, coming out of faster-than-light travel." A new vessel appeared, smaller than the Thunder but clearly of human design. Its commander's image appeared on their screen, a woman with graying hair and a confident smile. "Alliance outpost, this is Captain Miller of the HMS Lightning. I see Walker's part of the plan worked perfectly." She looked at their stunned expressions. "Don't worry about the Thunder. They knew exactly what they were doing. Right now, that machine fleet is being pulled through a series of engineered gravity wells, each one carefully placed to lead them exactly where we want them." Reed found his voice. "And where is that?" Miller's smile grew wider. "To the biggest trap humanity has ever built. You see, Commander, the Thunder wasn't here to defend your outpost. They were here to be bait. And now that the machines took it, the real battle can begin." Captain Miller's ship, the HMS Lightning, moved smoothly into position near the Alliance outpost. Unlike the Thunder's heavy armor and weapon ports, the Lightning was sleek and fast, built for speed and coordination rather than direct combat. "Your station's sensors are about to pick up something interesting," Miller said, checking her displays. "In 3, 2, 1. Right on cue, Brown's console lit up with new alerts. "Commander, multiple signals appearing. They're human ships, dozens of them, all across Alliance space." Reed watched in amazement as his main screen filled with new contacts. Human vessels of various sizes emerged from hiding places throughout the sector. Some from behind moons, others dropping their stealth fields, and more arriving through faster-than-light travel. 57 ships, Miller announced proudly. "The first wave of humanity's deep space fleet. We've been positioning them for months, hiding them in plain sight, while your sensors were focused on our primitive space program back on Earth." The human ships moved with perfect coordination, forming a complex web of positions around the sector. Each one activated gravity drives similar to the Thunder's, but at much lower power. "I don't understand," Reed said, his scales showing confusion. "If you had this many ships, why hide them? Why send the Thunder alone?" Miller's expression turned serious. "Because we needed the machines to think they had us figured out. The Thunder showed them what they expected to see. A single powerful ship, using tactics they could study and analyze. They took the bait, committed their forces, and now." She touched her console, bringing up a new display. It showed a three-dimensional map of nearby space, with glowing lines connecting all the human ships. The pattern looked familiar to Reed. "That's the same formation as the targeting markers the Thunder deployed," he realized. "Similar principle, much bigger scale," Miller confirmed. "Those markers were a test run, showing us how the machines would react. Now we're doing the same thing across 50 light-years of space." Brown interrupted with another alert. "New signals. The machines, they're coming out of the gravity well. But not here. They're scattered across the sector." The map showed it clearly. The Thunder's gravity drive hadn't just moved the machine fleet. It had split them up, forcing smaller groups to emerge at different points in space. And at each location, human ships were waiting. Walker and his crew knew exactly what they were doing, Miller explained. The Thunder's gravity drive was calibrated to break up and redirect the machine fleet. Instead of fighting them all at once, we're picking them apart piece by piece. Reed watched as battles erupted across the sector. Human ships engaged the scattered machine forces using the same tactics the Thunder had demonstrated. Clouds of metal particles accelerated by gravity drives, unpredictable patterns that the machines couldn't adapt to. "But what about the Thunder?" Reed asked. "And their crew?" Miller smiled. "Watch the map. Third quadrant, Mark 7. A new signal appeared exactly where she indicated. The thunder emerged from its own gravity well, its hull scared but intact. The massive ship had ridden its own distortion through space, using the machine's momentum against them. "Commander," Walker's voice came through, slightly distorted but clear enough. "Sorry about the light show. Had to make it convincing." Its ship moved to join a group of human vessels, engaging a cluster of machine ships. Reed noticed something else on the map, more ships arriving, but not human ones this time. "The Alliance fleet," he said, recognizing the energy signatures. "They're responding to our distress calls." "Perfect timing," Miller replied. "Now they can see what humanity's primitive technology can really do. And maybe," she paused as her crew reported more machine ships being destroyed across the sector, "maybe they'll understand why we chose to develop our technology the way we did. Sometimes the old ways, the simple ways, are exactly what you need." The battle continued to unfold across space, humanity's carefully laid trap closing around their ancient enemy. But Reed couldn't help noticing that Miller seemed concerned about something. "Captain," he said carefully, "what aren't you telling us?" Miller's smile faded. "Those quantum calculations Walker mentioned, they showed something else coming, something bigger. This." She gestured at the ongoing battle. "This is just the warm-up. The real test is still on its way." The Alliance fleet arrived in full force, their sleek ships taking positions alongside the human vessels. On the outpost's main screen, Reed watched as Walker's Thunder regrouped with Miller's Lightning, both ships showing battle damage but still fighting strong. "Multiple quantum distortions forming," Brown shouted, his hands flying over his console. They're bigger than anything we've seen before." Space itself seemed to tear open. The new rifts were not the clean, precise tunnels the machine scouts had used. These were massive wounds in reality, bleeding strange light into normal space. Something was forcing its way through. "There it is," Miller said quietly. "The thing our computers couldn't process. The reason we built our entire fleet around gravity manipulation." Her ship's sensors showed the true scale of what was emerging, a construct of silver and darkness larger than a small moon. "By the stars," Reed whispered, his scales pale with fear. The machine entity was unlike anything in Alliance records. It wasn't a ship. It was as if space itself had been turned into living metal, flowing and shifting in ways that hurt to look at. "All ships, Battle Formation Delta," Walker commanded, his voice carrying across all channels. "Remember the simulations. Remember what we practiced. Everything until now is preparation for this moment." The human fleet moved with practiced precision, their ships forming a sphere around the massive machine entity. The Alliance vessels, following hastily shared tactical data, took up supporting positions. "Commander Reed," Miller called, "we need your outpost's sensor network. The next part has to be perfectly timed." Reed didn't hesitate. "Brown, give them full access." He had seen enough to trust the humans completely. The machine entity pulsed with impossible energy. Where the smaller ships had tried to analyze and adapt, this one simply overwhelmed. Beams of pure force lashed out, cutting through space. Several Alliance ships, their energy shields useless, vanished in flashes of light. But the human fleet was ready. Their gravity drives activated in sequence, creating a web of distorted space around the entity. The massive construct tried to move, but found itself caught in crossing gravitational fields. "Now for the tricky part," Walker said, his ship moving into position. "Captain Miller, is the calculation ready?" "Confirmed," she replied. "All ships, prepare for synchronized gravity pulse on my mark." The machine entity seemed to realize what was happening. Its surface rippled, trying to break free of the gravitational web. More energy beams fired, becoming increasingly erratic. "It's afraid," Reed realized aloud. "It can't predict what you're doing." "That's humanity's greatest strength," Miller said with a grim smile. "We don't always make sense. Sometimes we try things that seem impossible, just to see if they'll work." She checked her readings one last time. "All ships report ready." "Admiral Walker, the fleet is yours to command." Walker's voice was steady as he gave the order that would make history. "All ships, execute Operation Singularity. May God have mercy on us all, because physics sure won't." Every human ship's gravity drive engaged at full power, their carefully positioned web of gravitational fields converging on a single point. Space itself began to compress under forces it was never meant to endure. The machine entity fought desperately now, its attacks becoming more powerful but less controlled. It could calculate every possible rational response, but it had no defense against what the humans were attempting, because no rational species would ever try something so dangerous. 10 seconds to critical mass, Miller reported as her ship shuddered under the strain. "All ships holding position. The gravity well is forming exactly as predicted." Reed watched in awe as space itself began to fold around the machine entity. The humans hadn't just built a fleet. They had created a weapon that could reshape reality itself, powered by the same simple physics they had used to fling metal dust at the scout ships. 5 seconds, Walker announced. "All Alliance ships, retreat to minimum safe distance. What comes next?" He paused as his ship groaned under immense forces. What comes next will be something entirely new. The machine entity made one last attempt to break free, its surface twisting into impossible shapes. But it was too late. Humanity's greatest gamble was about to pay off, and the universe itself would bear witness to the result. The combined gravity fields of 57 human ships reached their breaking point. Space itself seemed to scream as fundamental forces were pushed beyond their limits. At the center of it all, the massive machine entity thrashed in its gravitational prison, its silver surface cracking under pressures no material was meant to endure. "Critical mass achieved," Miller reported, her voice strained as her ship shuddered around her. "Point of no return in 3, 2, 1. Reality gave way. Where the machine entity had been, space folded in on itself, creating something that should have been impossible, an artificial, temporary black hole. The gravitational singularity was small but incredibly powerful, its event horizon expanding exactly as the human scientists had calculated. "All ships, full reverse," Walker commanded. "Ride the gravitational waves out." The human fleet's gravity drives switched from attack to survival mode, using the tremendous forces they had created to pull themselves away from the singularity. Alliance ships followed their lead, their engines straining to escape the pull of the artificial black hole. Reed watched from the outpost as the machine entity was torn apart by the very forces it had tried to understand and control. Its perfect surface, its impossible geometry, its overwhelming power, all of it meant nothing against the simple, brutal physics of a gravitational singularity. "Containment fields holding," Brown reported, his hand steady now despite the incredible forces shaking the station. The humans, they knew exactly how strong to make it. The black hole is already starting to collapse. True to their calculations, the artificial singularity began to shrink almost as soon as it had formed. The machine entity was gone, destroyed in a way that left nothing to rebuild, nothing to analyze, nothing to learn from. The thunder and lightning moved into formation near the outpost, their hulls scared and damaged, but their crews alive. Other human ships took up defensive positions, their gravity drives powering down but ready to reactivate if needed. "Status report," Walker called out across all channels. The responses came quickly. Some ships had been lost, others damaged, but the majority of both human and Alliance fleets had survived. "Commander Reed," Miller's voice came through clearly now that the gravitational distortions were fading. "Your outpost's quantum sensors, what are they showing?" Reed looked at Brown, who checked his readings carefully. "Nothing," the officer reported with clear relief. "No machine signals, no quantum distortions. The entity and all its ships, they're gone." A cheer went up across all channels. Human crews and Alliance crews celebrating together. Reed watched as Walker and Miller's ships docked with the outpost for emergency repairs. The two captains arrived at his command center minutes later, looking tired but proud. "How did you know it would work?" Reed asked them, his scales showing a mix of awe and curiosity. "We didn't," Walker admitted with a small smile. "Not for certain. But we knew the machines thought in patterns, tried to understand and control everything they encountered. So we gave them something that couldn't be controlled, a point where the laws of physics themselves break down." Miller nodded. "Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best. The machines could adapt to any weapon, predict any strategy, but they couldn't handle the raw chaos of a gravitational singularity." "The Alliance Council will want to speak with your leaders," Reed said. "This changes everything we thought we knew about humanity's capabilities." "That's fair," Walker replied. "But first, I suggest we work together to set up an early warning system. Where there was one entity, there might be more. And next time," he looked at Miller, whom nodded in agreement. "Next time, we should face them together from the start." Through the outpost's windows, they could see human and Alliance ships working side by side to clean up the debris from the battle. Engineering teams from both species were already sharing ideas, combining technologies, learning from each other. "You know," Reed said thoughtfully, his scales shifting to a color of deep respect, "when we first detected your ship, we thought you were primitives who had lost their way. But now I understand. Sometimes the old ways, the simple ways, are exactly what the universe needs." Walker smiled. "That's humanity for you, Commander. We may not be the most advanced species out there, but we know how to think outside the box. Sometimes way, way outside the box, or even outside the universe itself." Miller added with a laugh, looking out at the last traces of their artificial black hole fading away into normal space. The battle was over, but a new era was just beginning, one where humanity's primitive solutions might just be the key to protecting the entire galaxy.